McKellie Brown sat in front of a camera rewatching her own childhood on screen and said what millions of Sister Wives viewers had suspected for years. She called her parents liars, not in vague, careful language, directly, with receipts. McKellie and her husband Tony have been doing a rewatch series of Sister Wives on Patreon, going back to the very beginning. They are currently in season 6, and what they're uncovering is dismantling the carefully constructed image the Brown family spent over a decade building on national television. The unheard panel, where the lies began. In season 6, the Brown family participated in a panel discussion at unheard alongside former members of polygamous communities. These were real people sharing documented experiences, the neglect, the poverty, the psychological harm of living in plural marriage. The panel was meant to be an open discussion. Instead, it turned combative. Cody and Robin Brown became aggressive. They pushed back against the testimonies being shared. They dismissed, deflected, and in Robin's case, directly attacked one of the panelists. The Browns came to that panel with one mission: protect polygamy's public image. McKellie watched this back and did not hold back. I think some of their answers were pointed lies, and I think that they were trying to answer it in their own truth. She went further. Financially, we weren't well off until the show. This was said in direct response to Mary Brown claiming during the panel that the family was doing fine financially, a claim McKellie identified as a flat-out fabrication. Food stamps, bankruptcy, and MREs, the financial reality. The Brown family stood on a public stage at a university and told an audience that they were financially stable. McKellie watched that moment and responded with a list of facts. Mary, it wasn't a broad brush. Our parents lived in extreme poverty. You filed for bankruptcy. We were on food stamps. I had MREs for dinner at one time. Mary, Janelle, Christine, and Cody all filed for bankruptcy. Multiple children in the family lacked proper clothing. Some were eating stale bread. Some were eating military-grade meal rations, MREs, for dinner. These are not dramatic interpretations. These are documented financial realities that McKellie lived through as a child and watched her mother deny on camera. The purpose of that denial was clear. The Brown family was using their platform to argue that the negative statistics and media coverage surrounding polygamy were false. They wanted to position themselves as proof that plural marriage could be healthy, functional, and financially stable. The reality their own children lived contradicted every part of that argument. Robin's attack on Kristen Decker. The most disturbing moment of the unheard panel involved Robin Brown and a young woman named Kristen Decker. Kristen shared her personal experience of neglect, the harm she faced from sister wives who served as her mothers, and a father who had 14 wives and was later imprisoned for abuse. Robin's response was not empathy. She attacked Kristen directly. She challenged whether Kristen truly believed what she was saying, essentially implying that if she didn't believe in polygamy, she would have left. I said if I woke up and I decided this wasn't going to make me happy anymore and this didn't work for me, and if I didn't believe this anymore, I would leave. That's what you're saying. That's what you just agreed. McKellie and Tony watched this exchange and were disturbed. A survivor was sharing lived trauma on a panel designed for exactly that purpose, and Robin Brown used it as an opportunity to invalidate her experience publicly. Christine's secret, she was already done. McKellie offered an insight into Christine Brown's behavior during that same panel that reframes everything. She believes Christine was already doubting polygamy at the time, already emotionally checked out of the marriage and the lifestyle. Her hostility toward Kristen Decker was not conviction. It was self-protection. If Christine allowed herself to truly listen to what Kristen was saying, the neglect, the isolation, the harm, it would have validated doubts she was actively suppressing. Engaging honestly would have meant confronting her own reality. So she shut it down. Christine eventually left Cody and the plural marriage entirely, which is a matter of public record. What McKellie is pointing out is that the exit began far earlier than viewers were ever shown. Robin's language, we versus I, McKellie and Tony identified something precise about Robin's communication style during a therapy session that was filmed for the show. They broke down the specific way she uses language to control the family narrative. She says I statements when she's by herself. She says I statements, and her I statements aren't very informational. They're almost like upper level. She's not trying to tell you what's actually going on. And her we statements are like she actually wants to answer for the whole group even though she doesn't let anybody else have an answer. When Robin speaks as an individual, she is vague. When she speaks for the group, she is absolute. She would make declarations like, we are all doing this together. We are all working on this. We are all coexisting, statements that covered the experiences of 4 women and multiple children as though they were all living the same internal reality. Tony made the observation directly. Cody accepts Robin's dream of polygamy and she's imprinting that on everybody else. The Sedona Therapy Circle, a power move on camera. During a filmed therapy session in Sedona, Cody gathered the family and asked everyone to stand in a circle together. He positioned himself in the center, or rather asked everyone to surround him. What happened next was recorded and broadcast to millions of viewers, but McKellie identified the detail that most people missed. Robin held Dad's hand. Nobody else, even when they were doing all the circle stuff, held Dad's hand or tried to touch him or put their arms on him. Robin held Cody's hand. She also held Mary's hand, but in a way that physically placed Mary further from Cody, not closer. McKellie noted that Robin appeared to be holding Mary away from their shared husband rather than drawing her in. This was not an accident. It was a visible expression of the territorial dynamic Robin established from the moment she entered the Brown family. You're seeing Cody constantly trying to force them to have this imaginary friendship and sister-wife imaginary dream that they don't care to have for each other. They were never friends. McKellie delivered one of the most significant revelations of the entire rewatch when she addressed the foundational premise of Sister Wives as a show. The series was built on the idea of 4 women choosing this life together, building something unified, functioning as a family. That premise was false from day one. Janelle and Christine are friendly, but not close friends. Janelle and Mary interact only as it relates to the show and would not spend time together otherwise. Mary and Christine are not friends. None of the women were ever friends, not before Robin joined and not after. Even in the Lehigh house where all 4 wives and their children lived under one roof in 3 separate apartments, the women maintained almost entirely separate lives. The children moved between the spaces. The mothers largely did not interact. McKellie stated that the experience of living in that house was so difficult that none of the women ever wanted to live under one roof again. She also confirmed that when Robin Brown joined the family in the early seasons of the show, 3 of the 4 existing wives were already questioning whether they wanted to remain in the marriage. The show that launched to document a thriving plural family was actually documenting a family that was already fracturing. Cody as a father, present is not the same as available. Cody Brown was asked directly during a film segment whether he was emotionally available for his children. His answer was defensive rather than reflective. He did not address the emotional component of the question. He simply insisted he was there. I feel like I'm as active in my children's life as anybody that I know their involvement in their children's life. McKellie's response to watching this was precise. He was not emotionally available. He made time when it suited him. He created space for the children to exist in his world, but he did not enter theirs. It wasn't him coming into our world. It was us stepping into his world. Being physically present and being emotionally available are 2 different things. McKellie drew that line clearly. The real harm, victims dismissed on national television. McKellie and Tony returned to the most serious consequence of everything they had been watching. The Brown family did not just misrepresent their own lives. They used their national platform to tell abuse survivors that what they experienced was not normal, not representative, and not credible. Women who were trafficked, children who were abused, families destroyed by the dynamics of forced polygamy, these people came forward and were met with the Browns telling the public that this was not what polygamy looked like, that the Browns were what polygamy actually was. If you leave your children with another wife, they're going to get hurt because they can't take it out on anyone else but the kids or the other wives. They can't take it out on the man. McKellie acknowledged that the competitive dynamic between women who share a husband extends to how those women treat each other's children. The resentment finds an outlet. It always does. And the Browns went on television and told the world that this was not happening, while McKellie watched it happen in her own home. They forced a version and tried to change the dynamics in the family to fit and suit Robin at the expense of everyone else. That is Tony's summary, and it applies not just to the internal family structure, but to the public narrative the Browns constructed and maintained for over a decade. The children who grew up inside that narrative are now the ones dismantling it season by season, episode by episode on Patreon, with the kind of honesty the show itself never permitted.